כל יום שיבוא, ואף על פי שנתמהמה, עם כל זה אחכה לו, בכל יום שיבוא.
Alrighty. Awesome. Okay, now let's begin. Well, let's say a quick prayer to start this session here. Yahweh, we ask you to come and sit with us. We ask you to come and teach us. We ask you to give us clarity, wisdom, knowledge, understanding is what we ask for our audience, is what we ask for our speaker. Give us the ability to learn so that we can come into the revelation ourselves first, and then we can share what we've come into the revelation of with others. Clarity is what we ask for your people. Thank you, Yahweh. Amen. Amen. Awesome. So sorry for the late delay, was due to technical difficulties, but we are up and running and we're going to hit the ground running. We've been doing Abraham's journey. We are actually on the bridge crossing to Abraham's journey part 2. We have seen how remarkable Abraham is. We looked at some of his difficulties, some of what we would call errors and mistakes, and we have learned from these errors. We put light on where he triumphs, and then we also shed light on his difficulties. Today we're going to look at something very critical in the life of Abraham, and it's going to be a little challenging. It might challenge what you thought you knew about these blessings given to this patriarch, but open your hearts and let's look at something that happened that changed the course of our history. As usual, before we start, are there any, actually, because we've already consumed most of the time, 17 minutes, let me hit the ground running, and then during the Q&A, we can ask our questions. We are up to Genesis 17. It took us almost a year to get here. Genesis 17 is one of my favorites, if not favorite chapter in the life of Abraham, because it reveals a lot, and there are a lot of lessons that one needs to really glean from what is. Sorry, I wasn't recording it. My apologies. Thank you for pointing it out. So let me start officially so we can get a copy from the beginning correctly. So we're going to be talking about Abraham's journey too, and I've titled it A Great Nation. We spent almost a year getting to Genesis 16. And Genesis 17 is a bridge between Abraham's journey 1, as we title it, and Abraham's journey 2, which we are actually about to begin. Like I was saying, Genesis 17 is one of my favorite chapters in the book of Genesis. And it speaks a lot to certain things that if you don't read carefully, you'll miss out. And I want to point these things out to you. We're going to start by reading what I want to hang my hat on. Genesis 17, and then we're going to explain certain things. And Abram was 99 years old. And Elohim appeared to Abram, and he said to him, I am the Almighty Elohim. Walk before me and be perfect. And I will place my covenant between me and between you, and I will multiply you very greatly. And Abram fell upon his face, and Elohim spoke with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall become the father of a multitude of nations. And your name shall no longer be called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, with a H. For I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. Bravo. Not yet. I'm going to jump to verses 15 and continue there. And Elohim said to Abram, so he's finished telling Abraham what he's going to do for him, his change of status. Now he's going to focus on his wife Sarai. And Elohim said to Abraham, your wife Sarai, you shall not call her name Sarai, for Sarah is her name. Next week, we're going to look at all the difficulties in the text. And I will bless her, and I will give you a son from her, and I will bless her, and she will become a mother of nations. Kings of nations will be from her. These two narratives, the promise given to Abraham about himself and then about his wife Sarah, is what I want to hang my hat on. Before I start, I want you to ask yourself, this promise, this blessing given to Sarai, is it a good one? Is it a good blessing? Are there problems with this blessing? My answer is yes. And I want to show you why. We are excited about the blessing. But we've gotten so excited, we've missed the other message that comes with the blessing. There is a relationship that begins in the Torah that continues till today. It's the relationship that probably more than any other defines what it means to be a Hebrew in the world. And that is the relationship of Jacob and Esau. Because what happens is that Esau turns from the individual into the nation, who is the perennial enemy of the Hebrew people. I want us to look at the Jacob and Esau relationship. Because what happens is that Esau turns from the individual to the nation, whom is the perennial enemy of the Hebrew people. And it all starts with the prophecy given to Rebekah. Context. Isaac and Rebekah are married for 20 years, childless. And then Rebekah conceives. And she is bothered. Maybe she is upset by her pregnancy. So she goes to find out what this is all about. Genesis 25. And the children struggled within her. And she said, if it be so, why am I like this? And she went to inquire of Yahweh. And Yahweh said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 ethnicities will separate from your innards. 1 ethnicity, 1 people will become mightier than the other. The elder will serve the younger. I'll explain number 4 into details very soon. When we are told that she went to inquire of Yahweh, does that mean she went to pray to Yahweh somewhere? Or maybe she went to a Navi, a prophet, or to some holy man? Or maybe she might have gone to other women who have had the experience of pregnancy to ask if this is what they experienced so that she can get some information. That is not my focus today. But the first thing is that when she goes to inquire of Yahweh and she is given the answer, she's told that the first thing that you should understand is that the unnatural or the unusual feelings that you are having is because you have twins. Fine, that settles that. However, it's a much bigger statement than you having twins. What does it mean? If you think about it, at that point, it should be a comforting and nobling and majestic statement that she should feel like, I'm going to be the mother of great leaders, or a mother of sons that are going to found great nations. That is wonderful. 2 nations are in your womb. Awesome. It doesn't stop there. It says 2 ethnicities will separate from your womb, meaning they will separate from each other from the womb. So that is additional information, because from the first statement, if you just read the first statement, 2 nations are in your womb. From the first statement, you should get the notion that later on in life, these 2 children or these twins are going to found nations, parallel nations, maybe nations that will work together. Okay. Separate nations, but they will work together. But that is going to be down the line, maybe when they are 50 years old. But the second statement comes and raises the bar and tells us that the split between these 2 is going to happen immediately at birth. Separated. They will separate. Implies that just at birth. It's not that they're just going to separate from each other, but they're going to be somewhat of a divide. This, we can say, is still not anything to be upset about. She's going to give birth to 2 children whom from the get-go are going to be different. They're going to be separate. They're going to be powerful leaders who will found nations. Okay, every mother can handle that. And then she's hit with this. 1 group will struggle with the other. Now, this is all new information, because up until now, we have the prophecy that could easily be understood and interpreted as all positive about great power in the world of nations that are working in concert or working in separate fields. Suddenly, we are told that these nations will struggle with each other. They will be in direct conflict. And then at the end of the prophecy, she's told the elder will serve the younger. The mothers on here listening, how would you feel if you were Rebecca getting this prophecy? Is this something to jubilate about? You haven't had the kids yet, but they're telling you about the divide that would happen in your family. The elder will serve the younger. Now, the Hebrew here is very ambiguous and is deliberately ambiguous because it can mean two things. Rab Yabod Sayer can mean two things. It can mean the older one will serve the younger one, or he will enslave the younger one. We'll get more into the syntax when we get to Genesis 25. I'm just saying this in passing, and then you will see we'll pull on this prophecy given to her about the elder serving the younger. Rab Yabod Sayer is an ambiguous statement. You can read it two ways. The older will serve the younger ones, or he will enslave the younger one. So what that means is if you put them all together with the deliberate ambiguity, is that these two children are going to be heads of nations. Their separation will be marked from the get-go. They will be in conflict with each other. And there will always be one having dominion over the other. But which one is unclear because there's an ambiguity there, which may mean that it's going to shift or it can shift. One time this one is on top, the next time this one is on top. One time this one is on top, the next time this one is on top. The question is, why is this the fate of Isaac and Rebekah? Why is this the fate of our people? We usually don't ask these questions. We look at the blessings and we're all excited. As a mother getting this prophecy, I believe you would have asked, why this? Who wants to have a broken family? Which parent wants to have their family divide where children don't get along? No one. So as we have studied to read Torah and Tanakh, you have to put yourselves into the shoes of these characters and examine how you would feel, the questions that you would ask. How does this prophecy play out in the life of Yaakov and Esau? The two men who are the focal point of the prophecy. And then we can ask the bigger question, which is why? Why is this the fate of Isaac and Rebekah? Why is this the fate of a people? To have our cousins, Esau, who is represented to us, perennial, built-in, hardwired enemies from the get-go. Esau hasn't done anything. Jacob hasn't done anything. They are not even born yet, but this is what Rebekah is getting when she went to inquire. What happens in the life of Jacob and Esau? What does the Torah tell us about the birth? And her days to give birth were completed. And behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first one emerged ruddy. He was completely like a coat of hair. And they named him Esau. And afterwards, his brother emerged, and his hand was grasping Esau's heel, and he named him Jacob. Now, Isaac was 60 years old when he gave birth to them. So we see the prophecy coming into fruition right at birth. When the two boys grew up, what was their livelihood? What livelihood did Esau adopt? We have to read it carefully because sometimes we read too fast. I know most of you will say a hunter. Read it carefully. 27. And the youth grew up, and Esau was a man who understood hunting. He understood hunting. He didn't say he was a hunter. A man of the field, an ish sadeh, meaning that he was a farmer. Thank you, Madam Tao. He could hunt. Yes, he understood it. But he's introduced as an ish sadeh, that is a man of the field. Jacob was an innocent man. So whilst Esau understood hunting, Jacob is an innocent man, and then we are told that he dwelt in tents, meaning that he was a shepherd. When Esau is said to be a man of the field, what is the difference between the field and the jungle? The field is a place of agriculture, a place where a person works. That's why he's a farmer. These two boys replicate the oldest livelihood desperation. A separation that we have that goes back to the first two brothers in history. Cain was a farmer. Abel was a shepherd. So now we already have an idea that things are not going to bode well. They separate immediately. And the next scene we hear about is a play on the separation. Jacob, who is not the hunter, who was not the field man or the man of the field, the one who stays in the tent and watches the sheep and moves around with them, is crooked. Esau comes in starving, and we all know what plays out. But the scene we are given immediately is the opposition of one against the other. And Rebekah's prophecy is coming true. They have separated and they are struggling with each other. The younger one gets dominion over the older through the sale of the birthrights. The younger one gets dominion over the older one through the sale of the birthright. This is raised exponentially in the next scene involving Jacob and Esau, which is the stolen blessing scene. Before we see what it was that Isaac blesses Jacob with, Mr. Andre, you had a question.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Regarding Esau, or how would you say his name? How would you say his name?
Esau.
Is it Esau or just Asu?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, Esau, him being a hunter, and it turned out to be like he was a hunter of men, but isn't that the same as Bereshit or Genesis 10:9 regarding Nimrod, that he was a mighty hunter.
Yes.
And look what happened to him. I mean, he turned out to be the same. I'm a hunter of men. Doesn't this same applies to Esau? And the second question, and I'm getting this from, I believe, Jubilees, where it says Yaakov was a man of the tents, where the tents represent he was a man of the books. He learned, he stayed and learned under the elders.
Yes. So
that's the other question.
Yes. So when it says someone is a man of the tent, that is what it also implies. It can mean somebody who is an intellectual. So Esau is the man of the field, meaning that he works with his. Esau is the man of the field, meaning he works with his hands. Jacob sits in tent, meaning that he's intellectual. He works with his intellect. So these two twins, these two children, if they had worked together, Esau would have provided the material wealth. Jacob would have provided the intellectual wealth. But they didn't get to work together, as we'll see.
Okay, and later on, I'll have a question about the scene that you're about to go over regarding the birthright when Yaakov was cooking the stew.
Yes, dear.
I have a question about that later on.
Okay, awesome. Oh, Mr. David, I cut you. Sorry. Go ahead, Mr. David. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, sir.
I have a quick question. Have there ever been a righteous farmer throughout the scripture? Because it seems like all the ones that hold the personality or the trait of a farmer, they always turn out to be against the Most High.
Yes, if Isaac was a farmer, maybe he would qualify. If we can argue that he was a farmer, maybe we can put him in the midst of the righteous.
Oh, okay. So having the personality trait or the occupation of a farmer doesn't necessarily put you against the Most High then?
Not at all.
Okay. So what is it about? So it's just within these two guys or these two farmers, being Cain and Esau, that they turn out the way they are. It wasn't anything that was predetermined based on their occupation or based on what they did, though, no?
No, negative now. No,
okay. Yeah. All right. That's just one thing I wanted to clear up.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thanks. You're welcome. Let's move on. So, what is it that Isaac blesses Jacob with? Thinking it was Esau. Let's make that argument. Is the blessing of material wealth. Genesis 27. And he came closer and he kissed him, and he smelled the fragrance of his garment, and he blessed him, and he said, behold, the fragrance of my son is like the fragrance of a field, which Yahweh has blessed, because Esau was a man of a field. He blesses him with the dew of heaven, the fatness of the earth, and the abundance of grain and wine. So Jacob gets the material blessing that was supposed to go to the farmer. He gets it as a shepherd. We're just saying this in passing. When we get to Genesis 27, we'll go into details of it. Esau shows up. And this is the part of the blessing scene that's most telling to the prophecy. Esau shows up. And what does Isaac tell him? And Isaac answered and said to Esau, behold, I made him a master over you. And I gave him all his brothers as servants, and I have sustained him with corn and wine. So for you then, what shall I do, my son? And Esau said to his father, have you but one blessing, my father? Bless me too. And Esau raised his voice and wept. We give Esau a bad rap. but I want you to play the role of a father. And your son is standing in front of you crying because of a blessing that he missed. He raised his voice and he wept. And his father Isaac answered to him, behold, wait a second. He asked him, I didn't bring it here. He asked him, do you only have one blessing? Yes, 38. And Esau said to his father, have you but one blessing? Bless me too. This is a child wanting father to lay hands on him and give him a certain kind of blessing. And he's not going to get it. The blessing that he wanted, he did not get that blessing. But he gets a very important blessing. And his father Isaac answered and said to him, behold, your dwelling places shall be the fat places of the earth. Beautiful blessing. And of the dew of the heaven from above. Now look very carefully at verses 40. And you shall live by your sword, and you shall serve your brother. And it will be when you grieve, when you push hard, that you will break his yoke off your neck. The implication of this blessing pronounced Mr. David, I'm coming. The implication then, of course, is that when you break his yoke from your neck, it means that you will be in charge. You will serve him. You will break that yoke, and then it can change. So that places that ambiguity that we saw in Genesis 25. Isaac is making a statement here. When you grieve, that you will break his yoke off your neck. That balance and that ambiguity, which could play out either way, already plays out in their life. That ambiguity that we saw that in the fourth one, now I've made it number 2. The older one will serve the younger one, or he will enslave the younger one. That ambiguity. Rab, Yabod, Sayer. Is a deliberate ambiguity, and we see when Isaac pronounces that blessing on Esau, he tells him something very key. And you shall serve your brother, and it will be when you grieve that you will break his yoke off your neck. What was Esau's reaction? He says, I'm going to kill Jacob. Even though I am much more interested, I'm just going over it and not giving details, but even though I'm much more interested today in what was the cause of this, these two nations, what was the cause of this? But let's tie our picture together and then we can answer that question. What actually happens with this conflict in the life of Esau is that at the end, Jacob runs away. He spends however long he spends, at least 22 years away. He comes back. He hears that Esau is coming with 400 men. He is scared. But as we see from the way the story develops, Esau does not intend him harm. Esau intends a reunion. And he actually asks Jacob, let's hang out together. Esau is ready to unite with his brother and wants to live together with his brother, but Jacob wants none of it. And Jacob and Esau never met again until the burial of Isaac. So how does the story actually end in the lives of Jacob and Esau? You could see the seeds of both of them being the heads of two nations. The two nations have been in conflict before they were nations. But the conflict seems to be resolved when Esau hugs his brother Jacob and he says, let's dwell together. There's a reunion here. So the conflict seems to be resolved. But of course, as we open the book of Exodus, our journey out of Egypt, from nowhere comes Amalek. And as we open the book of Numbers, we are suddenly trying to have a peaceful passage through Edom, the land of Esau, and that doesn't happen. And it continues through history. But in their lives, it's neatly tied up. It was a hug and a handshake and a burial of father, that is Isaac. Why? Why is this a necessary legacy for Israel as a nation? Now let's go back to the beginning. Whenever you talk about going back to the beginning, you talk about two very short words. And that is lek lecha. Go for yourself. Go to yourself. The beginning for us is Abraham. What was Abraham promised? What was Abraham promised when he was told to leave home? Lech lecha, to go to a land that I will show you. What was the first thing he is promised? Any clues? The first thing that Abraham is promised when Yah comes and he says, Lech lecha. Genesis 12. Look at it carefully, with precision. Read slowly. Yahweh said to Abraham, go forth from your land and from your birthplace and from your father's house to the land that I will show you, and I will make you into a great nation, a goyi gadol. Not bad for a man who is already 75, no children. Quite a big promise. My question is that a goyi gadol, a great nation, is that singular or plural? Look at it.
Singular.
Singular. Thank you. What's the nation going to be doing in the world? The one word that repeats through those 3 verses is blessing. And I will bless you, and I will aggrandize your name, and you shall be a blessing. And I'll bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. And all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you. So the one word that repeats through those 3 verses is blessing. They are going to be the source of blessing to everybody who encounters them and everybody who connects with them. Bless, 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 bless. It's all great. Beautiful. Now, put what Mr. Andre said. One nation, single, singular. Now, in the most mysterious moment in Abraham's life, which is the covenant between the parts, there is a vision within a vision. So he's having a vision, and then within that vision, he gets another vision. Abraham asks, O Yahweh Elohim, how will I know that I will inherit it? After he's finished with the war of the 4 kings and the 5 kings, and he's so frustrated. We've studied Genesis 15 already. And based on his frustrations, he poses a question to Yahweh. Yahweh gives him an answer. And Abraham counters with the question, O Yahweh Elohim, how will I know that I will inherit it? What is Yahweh's response? And he said to him, take for me 3 heifers and 3 goats and 3 rams and a turtle dove and a young bird. And he took for him all these, and he divided them in the middle, and he placed each part opposite its mate. But he did not divide the birds. And the birds of prey descended upon the carcasses, and Abraham drove them away. Then in the middle of all this is a vision. He gets another vision within the vision. And he said to Abraham, you shall surely know, it is a fact, that your seed will be strangers in a land that is not theirs. And they will enslave them and oppress them for 400 years. And also the nation that they will serve will I judge. We know Yahweh is a just God. With this statement told to Abraham, what will be our conclusion about oppression?
The oppression will end. It's not an eternal, never-ending enslavement or oppression. That oppression will end.
Will end. Okay, let me rephrase the question. What does it tell us about the morals or the act of oppression?
In verse 13?
Verse 13 and 14. He's saying that you shall surely know that your seeds will be strangers in the land that is not theirs, and they're going to be oppressed. But I will in turn judge that nation that oppresses. I think yes. Please go ahead.
Is it saying that anytime we're in a land that we are strangers, that we will face oppression?
Not necessarily. The moral of it, the moral of oppression.
This is Maureen.
Yes.
Does this mean that the descendants of Abraham will never be assimilated in the land because they will always be considered strangers?
Not here. What you're saying, everything everybody is saying has some truth to it, but maybe I'm not posing the question correct. So let me answer it. Maybe you.
Hello, Brother Battle.
Yes, Madam
Sorry to
Cynthia.
interrupt.
No problem.
Yeah. myself and Chloe was talking, and we were thinking it's because I think it's about oppression. It has boundaries.
Okay.
That there's left, like, it's almost like Yah has borders. Like, he allows you to do certain things, but you know, you can go too far. Does that make sense? And come out of that you can go beyond what you're actually being given. Does that make sense in terms of repression?
Yes, but it doesn't answer my question.
In terms of that he serves, and then God will judge what you've done, essentially. That what we're saying, babe?
Yes. Yes.
Rabbi Akwetey?
Madam Tao.
Is it that, okay, when we'll be a blessing, the nations that we were taken into, we're a blessing in that we built them up. But we're not reaping those blessings. We bless them. But Yah sees everything, and he's going to judge those nations because we were a blessing to them and they did not repay us with kindness or regard. So even though, yes, we're being a blessing, he's going to judge those nations that took advantage of us.
Take advantage of us. Okay, awesome. So I think Mr. David answered the question, and then Mr. Donald, and then Madam Toy. When, see, Yah is a just person. He's a righteous judge. Okay. He's telling Abraham, your children, they are going to be oppressed. And I will judge those who oppress them. It means that anyone, regardless of who it is, anyone who oppresses, Yahweh judges them. Anyone, I repeat that, anyone who oppresses, Yahweh judges them. He's no respecter of persons. He's a righteous judge. Abraham, a nation is going to oppress your people, and I'll judge them. He doesn't have to turn around and tell Abraham, don't oppress anyone. Because logically it makes sense. I hate oppression. You oppress, I judge.
Is that why? So the key word in verse 14 is also.
Also.
So in other words, it's like, okay, and I also would judge that nation. Like,
yes.
So that means not only you, but any other nation that oppresses a people or another nation. Eventually, I'm going to judge, whether it's Native American, no matter who it is.
I would judge.
I'm going to judge.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Put that in your spirit. Now you're with me. At this point, that Abraham is given this, Abraham has no son. We know that he gets a son in chapters 16 via Hagar, and his name is Ishmael. Sarah is yet barren. Now Yahweh comes to Abraham at age 99 and says to him, we've come back to Genesis 17. Abraham was 99 years old, and Elohim appeared to Abraham, and he said to him, I am the Almighty Elohim. Walk before me and be perfect. And I will place my covenant between me and between you, and I will multiply you very greatly. And Abraham fell upon his face, and Elohim spoke with him, saying, as for me. Pause there. What does that imply? As for me, when you use that statement,
Me and me alone.
okay, my ruling is, okay, When would
Or
you
I and
use
I.
that
Doesn't matter
statement?
what you do, this is what I will do.
Awesome. As for me, meaning that there is a situation, somebody has come to you and told you something, maybe they did something wrong, and you say, as for me, this is what I'm going to do. Maybe you spent all your money. As for me, I'm going to give you 20. So I'm going to make a covenant with you. You might have done something. As for me, this is the result. Please follow me. This is critical. As for me, behold, my covenant is with you. And you shall become a father of a multitude of nations. Wow. And your name shall no longer be called Abraham, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you the father of a multitude of nations. Beautiful. Don't rejoice too quick. Whatever Abraham did in Lech-Lecha raised him exponentially from a nation to a multitude of nations. Sister Rachel is ahead of me. The man is promised one nation. That was the original covenant. Beautiful covenant. Is to be a father of a multitude of nations a good thing? That is a question. Think about it.
It's going to come with a cost. So I don't know how to answer that question.
The original promise given to the man when he was called was a single nation. So that blessing to be a father of a multitude of nations is not really a good blessing. What changed? It means that there's going to be competition. There's going to be conflict. When you have children that are not united, they all go by the same last name. Why can't they not be united? Why can't they go under one banner and be one great nation? But you could easily argue at this point that Goyim, instead of Goyim, plural, nations, that Yever is referring to is whom? It will say is Ishmael. And this new kid who is going to come around from Sarah, which is Isaac. You can argue that. Not so bad, if that is the case. Until the clincher. He turns and focuses on Sarai. And Elohim said to Abraham, your wife Sarai, you shall not call her name Sarai, for Sarai is her name. I'll give you a clue to next week. Sarah did not get a change of name. Read it carefully. Compare what was told to Abraham and then compare what was told to Sarah. She did not get a change of name. I will build on that next week. See? And I will bless her and I will give you a son from her. Beautiful. Madam Child, you're correct. About Sarai. Awesome. Beautiful. If we stop at this point, I'm a happy camper. I will give you a son from her. Awesome. Which means at this point, we can stop and say, okay, we now know why Abraham is going to be a multitude of nations. He has already got Ishmael, and now he's going to have another son through Sarai. And these two will be the multitude of nations because they are from different mothers. Understood? Different mothers, they can be multitude of nations. Awesome. Perfect. Problem solved. We are all happy. Sarah is promised one son. And then Yah continues. The cruncher. And I will bless her, and she will become a mother of nations. What is the problem with that statement? Nations. Nations. Plural.
Is it, Rabbi, is it multiple nations are coming out of one woman?
How is that possible? How can a woman who only has one son be the mother of nations?
Because Isaac
Oh, awesome, 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 awesome. That means that the next generation is going to be the father of nations. That one son, Isaac, is later going to have the nations. So now you understand the prophecy that Rebecca gets. 2 nations are in your womb. And if you are Rebecca, you're confused about the prophecy you're being given because you didn't do anything to deserve division in your family. You were sitting somewhere in the Ur of the Chaldeans, and they send Eliezer to come and look for a wife, and you're chosen, and then you come into Isaac's tent, you get pregnant, you have this discomfort, you go to find out, and you're being told there's going to be division in your family, even before you have the children. What's going on? Why? One person cannot be a nation. So it means that the prophecy is speaking to the one child that Sarah is going to have. So the nation is not Isaac and Ishmael. The nation is the 2 children that this one son is going to have. And then they're going to be divided. Now we've moved away from the original blessing that was given to Abraham. One single nation. In unity, united, working together. So it is a good thing that Sarai is going to be a mother. And not only is she going to have a child with Abraham, and not only will it be a nation, she would be the mother of nations. That's very great. We are happy for Sarai. Except when we look at it from a broader view, we realize that there's something here that's not great. Abraham started out with a great blessing of a great nation. Now there's a multitude of nations, and we think that's 2, but it's not 2 because Sarah is going to have only a son. And that son Isaac will have a divided family. Now the question is, what happened between Genesis 12 verses 2, where we see a blessing of a single nation, and then Genesis 17:5, where we see the multitudes of nations. What happened? As we have seen, Abraham's journey from Lech Lecha is huge. There is the Lech Lecha part, the Pharaoh and Sarai narrative. There is Lot and Lot's shepherd separating from Abraham. There is the world war with the 4 kings and the 5 kings. There is the meeting of Melchizedek. There is the covenant between the parts. There is circumcision. There is changing of names. Big, big, big stuff. It's so big that there's a small little story in the middle that often gets overlooked, which I think is actually the critical story in the whole narrative. Let's look at that story that you forgot to read and to examine. Remember, Yahweh is a just judge. Anyone who oppresses, Yahweh judges them. Abraham is told this after he's frustrated and he wants to know where the child is going to come from. How will this happen? Genesis 16, you already know this story, those who we study with on the Shabbat. But I want to hang my hat on something that I intentionally ignored throughout our session. I mentioned it in the introduction of Genesis 16, but I want to hang my hat on that. Let's read the narrative. Now Sarai, Abraham's wife, had not borne to him, and she had an Egyptian handmaid named Hagar. We are told of her nationality. She is Egyptian. You go back to 15. He's just woken up from that, if we read it back to back, from that vision that anybody who oppresses your kids or your children will be strangers in the land and the nation that oppresses them. We're told that the moment you turn over, we're introduced to a woman who is not of our nation, a woman who is an Egyptian. Her name is Hagar, the stranger. So it can be Hagar based on your vowels, or Hagar, the stranger. Okay, so we had a stranger in our house, within our tent. And Sarai said to Abraham, behold, now Yahweh has restrained me from bearing. Please come to my handmaid. Perhaps I'll be built up from her. And Abraham hearkened to Sarai's voice. So Sarai, Abraham's wife, took Hagar the Egyptian, her handmaid, at the end of 10 years of Abraham's dwelling in the land of Canaan. And she gave her to Abraham, her husband, for a wife. And he came to Hagar, and she conceived, and she saw that she was pregnant, and her mistress became unimportant in her eyes. And Sarai said to Abraham, may my injustice be upon you. I'm suing you, a legal term. I gave my handmaid into your bosom, and she saw that she had become pregnant, and I became unimportant in her eyes. May Yahweh judge between me and you. And Abraham said to Sarai, here is your handmaid in your hand. Do to her that which is proper in your eyes. There's the man of the house. Interesting advice. And Sarai afflicted her, and she fled from before her. And an angel of Yahweh found her by a water fountain in the desert, by the fountain on the road to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's servant, where are you coming from? And where are you going to? And she said, from before Sarai, my mistress, my boss, I am fleeing. Okay. She's been oppressed. Put that in your spirit. Hagar is being oppressed. Hagar is sitting somewhere, minding her business in Abraham's tent. Sarai comes up with what seems to her a beautiful idea. Take Hagar, Abraham said, okay. Hagar is silent here. She plays no role. And she gets oppressed. Okay. Now, this angel that she meets is going to say something that is absurd. And the angel of Yahweh said to her, return to your mistress and allow yourself to be afflicted, to be oppressed, to be subjugated under her hands. How do we explain this? Why would you tell a woman to go back to a place where she's being oppressed? Any clues? Why would the angel tell her that? It makes no sense.
I was thinking, because just like our ancestors went back to Mizraim a second time,
Wow.
that was like a prelude.
I never saw that. Wow, never seen that. Whoa. Awesome. I like that answer. I like the answer. I never saw that. She went, oh, wow. Okay. Very good answer. But that necessarily doesn't answer the question. Yes. It answers the question on the Remes level. Wow. Very, very interesting.
Hi, Rabbi.
Yes.
At the beginning of the paragraph, it says, for Yahweh has heard your affliction.
Yes.
So the angel sending her back is not like, he's basically saying to her that you're going back, not necessarily to be afflicted, because Yahweh has heard your affliction. And it goes back to the word being afflicted. And there's a lot carries, there's a meaning of this word when it says you're being afflicted, you're being oppressed, subject to cruel or unjust in positions or restrained. And we see that now with the children of Israel, they're kind of going through that same and sort of thing. We've been afflicted. What we're living now. But then it says Yahweh has seen our affliction. Yahweh has heard her affliction. And what I wanted to add to that is Hagar wasn't just an ordinary stranger, because even now we read of her. It's almost like she was planted there, a stranger, because she gave birth to a nation. So she was not just a stranger that's walking to your house and you say, don't touch my food or don't sit on my chair. She was more than that.
Yes. Awesome.
I just want to get that.
Awesome contribution, yes. It says, return to your mistress and allow yourself to be afflicted under her hands. I will not say that to my worst enemy, to go back and get afflicted.
Rabbi?
Mr. David.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but
No problem.
It's not, I'm looking at it from the point where it's not so much the affliction he's sending her back with, but more the comfort that comes behind that.
There's a
because
comfort.
He's like,
okay, yes.
Because he's like, all right, go ahead, go deal with whatever she's doing to you. But this is what I'm going to do for you. Here's how I'm going to deal with the situation. Let me handle it.
Awesome.
And then he lists off like 3 different blessings that he's going to bless her with.
Awesome. 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 When the angel tells her, go back and allow yourself to be afflicted under her hand, you notice as we studied, Hagar doesn't say anything. Quiet, silent. And the angel of Yahweh said to her, he's trying to convince her to go, I will greatly multiply your seed. It will not be counted for abundance. Hagar is silent because we have 3 speeches that Hagar doesn't respond to. Verse 11, and the angel of Yahweh said to her, behold, see, you will conceive and bear a son, and you shall name him Ishmael, for Yahweh has heard your affliction. It was when Ishmael is mentioned that she speaks afterwards. She agrees to go. When Yahweh says, the angel says Yahweh has heard your afflictions, that means that, yes, Hagar, you're being oppressed. And calling out to Yahweh, and Yahweh hearing your oppression means that the oppression is wrong. Because Yahweh hears it. He acknowledges it. It's wrong. But we are still telling you to go back and accept the oppression. Running away is not the solution. However, the reward for you accepting this oppression is Ishmael. Verses 12. This is where we get the translation wrong. Let's start from 11. So there's something that's comforting Hagar that makes her go back. And the angel of Yahweh said to her, behold, you will conceive and bear a son, and you shall name him Ishmael, for Yahweh has heard your affliction. You've been justified. Okay. And he will be a wild donkey of a man. To be a Pereh Adam. In modern Hebrew, it means a wild child. That is not what it means in Tanakh. Pereh Adam, from the modern Hebrew we speak, it means a wild child. But that is not what it means in Tanakh. When you read Jeremiah 22, verses 24, it says, a wild donkey accustomed to the desert, Pereh Limud Midbar. It means an animal who is free and not shackled. That is why it's interpreted as a wild donkey, not a domesticated donkey, a wild donkey, an animal who is free and not shackled. Pereh Limud Midbar. Read Jeremiah 2, 23 to 25. It's talking about somebody who is free and not shackled. What would that mean here when it's told to Hagar he will be a wild donkey of a man? With the meaning I've given you for Pereh Adam. Oh, Madam Tao got it. What is the reward for you accepting this oppression and accepting Sarai as your mistress and your boss? Your son will be free and not shackled. Your son will never be enslaved. He will be free, like a wild donkey. I will judge anyone that oppresses. This behavior of Abraham and Sarai was unacceptable. It was wrong. It was a big mistake. The oppression of the Egyptian maid servant. As if you ever knew this was going to happen because he gave Abraham information that he was not ready for and he jumped the gun. As if he was warning him. What happened here in Abraham's tent was something that should not have happened. The behavior towards Hagar was taking the covenant between the parts and turning it on its head. The consequence was a negative one for our family. The original promise of a single great nation, a single unified nation, all of Abraham's children, a single unified nation, was the ideal. It was the ideal. There would have been no Ishmael in the picture, not necessarily. Isaac would give birth to however many children Yah graced him with, who would all work together because of that single nation that Abraham is promised. A promise that only really got fulfilled in the next generation by Jacob, and even that, it was not with the greatest of success. The reason why we're called Israel and not Isaac or not Benjamin or not Abraham is because Jacob was able to have all his 12 sons work together, even though there were some difficulties. It was not even fulfilled to the best or the greatest of successes. What happened in Abraham's own house between Sarah and Hagar, with Abraham's participation for not interfering, changed everything. Everything that I've showed you today, the reason is because the relationship that you have within your own house, Abraham, is now going to be the relationship that's the destiny of your family. Before I conclude, Mr. Andre, please go ahead.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
But what about when Abraham told his wife, do what seems good? In other words, do whatever you do, since he's a righteous man and she's a righteous woman, do what is righteous, do what is good. She turned around and did what was evil. I understand that, that he could have did more to make sure this is done, because he is master. I was about to say he is master of the house, but actually, they're equal in that, or she may be even more so as regarding house. I think you taught on that another time, but
yes.
But he could have made sure that she was treated with respect instead of oppressed.
Oppressed, correct.
But he originally said, do what was, unless I'm taking, which I don't know if I looked up in Hebrew, which is told, do what is good, beneficial to this person. And she oppressed her.
Yes. But it all comes to who is responsible. No, because Sarai came to him, meaning that she was asking some sort of permission, or she was looking for some sort of solution to the problem. And he said, do what is good in your eyes. It might have been good in Sarai's eyes because she's putting her servant, into her place where she's supposed to be. So she might be using force. Maybe because she's upset, she's angry, she's not really thinking through what she's doing. But Abraham would have seen, it would take a lot for somebody to run out of the house, going back where they came from. So we can say that he did not see. Maybe he overlooked it. Maybe he just washed his hands from the situation. But we see that he changes when Sarai says you should send Hagar and Ishmael away. He didn't want to do it. So we could see that he developed, he grew up from the first mishap, but then Yah had to come and tell him, I want you to listen to what she's saying.
Can you repeat again, or show me at least, here is a great nation. I'm just making notes.
Yes.
And then the next one, I think, is Better Sheet 16, where you have the plural nations.
17.
17.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 17, you have the plural nations, because it says goyim, not goyi. So goyim, that is plural. And then Sarai is also promised nations, even though she has one child.
Brother Basil,
Madam
it's
Cynthia.
Cynthia here again.
Yes.
I just want to ask you something. I mean, there's two things. My understanding is that, so would it have made a difference if Sarah had, because she still had the choice. Sarah still had a choice of not carrying with the oppression and repenting for that oppression in regards to what she did to Hagar.
Yes. What they so let me rephrase that. What they did. Don't put only the blame on her. What they did.
No, but do you know what it is? No, Brother, I have to say that. I'm saying it because remember, Abraham was like, well, she's your servant, your maidservant. So do whatever you need to get on with. And she just went ahead and did what she did. I mean, he didn't, for me, I don't think Abraham didn't come across like, oh, Sarah, just chill out kind of thing. Do you mean? Like, yeah, she's not talking to you right, but let's work something out. Because he must have seen the oppression. I don't buy that Abraham did not see the oppression.
Oh yeah, he did. So example, if a mother reports a child to father, and then the father says, he is your child. The father says to their wife, he's your child. Do what is good. The emphasis is on the child. I mean, the child should not be talking to you, the parent, that way. So since the child is doing that, put the person back in. You come back to the text. Sarai takes Hagar as a wife and gives it to Abraham. When this complaint comes, Abraham comes back and says, she's your servant. So put her in her place as a servant, even though maybe your agreement with her was to be a wife. Whatever it was that you decided with her in private for her to agree to do this, let her know that she's a servant. So maybe, you see, when people are angry, they have selective hearing. So maybe the emphasis of your servant, was more emphasized in her psyche when she heard it. So it's like, okay, I'm going to put you in your place as a servant, and that may have resulted to the oppression.
Okay. The other thing is that I know, like we like to talk about these type of things and be like, oh, that is so lovely that in the sense that Ishmael becomes like a nation. But I think I struggle with what the story itself, in the sense that it wasn't overnight that Ishmael became a nation.
Oh.
And also his mother went through an oppression, but Ishmael also went through an oppression as well. So it wasn't just Hagar that went through the oppression, but it was also Ishmael, because when they were kicked out and went into some desert, I mean, that idea of having a kingdom or a nation just kind of went out the window, because I think Hagar said something like,
Okay,
oh, let me just give you this drink, let's just die.
Yeah, because she thought he was going to die, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. I just struggle with that, because...
Yes, we'll look at the parallels. When Ishmael was sent out, we'll look at it in the binding of Isaac. It will shock you what you will find. It's like it's playing. It's the echoes. You see, with that statement, let me conclude, and then we come back to the story or to the questions. Most of you listening and watching that are parents, we know that the greatest wish we have is that our kids or our children get along. Someone asked me the few couple of times I taught this, he says, why such cataclysmic consequences for a small behavior? Why? And my response was, what Pharaoh, what Abimelech does in his house comes with small consequences. But when you are Abraham Avinu, Abraham, our father, and your job is supposed to be a blessing to the rest of the world, everything you do has consequences. Not only that, if you are Abraham's child, you too are assigned with the same task. Everything you do has consequences, especially in your private domain, in your tent. The biggest challenge for a public leader is his or her private life. And the way in which we measure whether a public leader is really somebody to emulate is how they conduct their private life. Are they matured enough, capable enough, wise enough to be able to balance the needs of serving the public like Abraham was doing, while still doing their primary responsibility? And that is raising their family and keeping domestic tranquility. That is how it's measured, is what you do in your private domain. Next week, you would understand, as Mrs. Grant talks about the doorpost, why we are told to put something on the doorpost. She would explain it next week. It is what we do in our tents. We started out by looking at the prophecy given to Rebekah. We went forward into time, first through Genesis, where it seems to conclude successfully by Esau and Jacob meeting in Hagar. That's where we started from. And we continue throughout the rest of history, where it seemed to continue to be a prophecy which rings for us. We look backwards to see what the root of this was. We first took a look at the original promise given to Abraham and the promise given to him at the end of his first journey. We saw that in the middle of the whole story, with all the big splashy headlines, there is a small event that takes place inside the tent of Abraham, which seems to change history forever. It changes history because it introduces Ishmael into the equation. It changes history because it has Ishmael having a particular destiny. The relationship between the children of Ishmael and Isaac is going to be also contentious and unpleasant for history. This is all a result of the way Hagar, the stranger, was oppressed in Abraham's tent. And the lessons that come back to that, of course, is the lesson of what we need to be doing inside our own tents.
Whew.
This is the lesson. What we do inside our tents, what we do in secret. Yah says, I see all. As leaders, as parents, what we do in private can affect the next generation. So he says, when we're leaving Egypt, put this thing on your doorpost. We call it the mezuzah. Mrs. Grant will take it and run with it and explain the details of it. Just one error changed history. Questions, contributions, additions before we close?
Well, last week,
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. It's okay. I just want to say really quickly. Well, first of all, that was very deep and so true. But I wanted to answer what the gentleman who was, or reply to what the gentleman right now who was about to speak was saying earlier. This is the way that I see it, as far as even though Abraham told her, do what is right, in what is good in your sight, he did not wisely judge the situation. And the way that the Most High is, so is it in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. And he set order for a reason. And the same thing happened with Adam. He did the same thing. He actually listened to the weaker sex and did not properly judge the situation. He didn't engage himself the way that he should, to be the leader that he should, to make a proper decision, since he is the one who is the head of the home. So since he didn't fulfill his position the way that I see it, and he did not stand in his position, and he allowed her to take the reins, then as a result, that's why the Most High kind of changed the conditions some, because he wasn't standing in the full righteousness as he once did before, are my thoughts.
Awesome. Very true. Awesome. Mr. Andre.
When I think it was last week, when you compared this story, I think it's better sheet, that is Genesis 15, I think through 17, when you compared it to the Garden of Eden. Now, to those who just now joining in and didn't listen to not last week's broadcast, you're probably gonna think I'm a little off. But if he just would have waited, just like if Adam and Chava would have waited, he would have gave them, because the tree of knowledge of good and evil was in the garden. They would have ate that tree if they just would have waited and let Yahweh lead them to that in his time, just as Abraham, if he just would have waited, he would have received that blessing. But we call ourselves, or they called themselves, trying to, and excuse me for saying God, but just trying to help God out. Okay, so let's bring Hagar into the picture. Let's just help him out, because he's taking too long. Let's help him out, and we'll just bring this thing. We just bring this fruition up to the present. And it turned out to be a horrible, tragic mistake that they made, that we still paying for today. To this day, we still paying for it.
Yeah. Yep. True.
So before someone else asks a question, so to those who just now joining, please listen to last week's broadcast, and you'll hook this thing up.
Yes, he was setting it up so that when, like we said, we are pointing out where they shined and then where they went wrong, so that since the book is the book of instructions, so that we can also learn, so we don't repeat these things. Because this was a huge cause. I mean, when we read Genesis 17, beautiful. Like I said, there are very huge, epic things happening. But when you read carefully, you notice, wait a second. Now, why start a blessing with "as for me"? What are you implying? As for me? Wait, what did I do? Yeah, so now you go and then you take a look at it, and it's amazing. It's amazing what is going on and what we sometimes miss. See, why tell Hagar to go back? Because your child is not going to be enslaved.
I love the way that you break this into crumbs. Like, because, I mean, we can just read past certain things and just keep it moving. But when you break it up into crumbs like you do, and like an eagle feeds her chicks, man, those things I should say, I should just put it personal, have read past, like, oh, wow. Those little bitty crumbs right there end up being huge pieces of meat.
Huge piece
and that still feeds your soul. So I really appreciate you for that.
You're welcome. We thank Yah for showing us tools on how to study his Torah so we can apply them. I read past them so many times still. My teacher told me, these are the tools. Don't read it as a storybook. Put yourself in the shoes of the character. If I'm Rebecca, I would ask a whole bunch of questions. What did I do to deserve my family being split up? As a parent, who wants that? But it was nothing that she did, nothing that Isaac did. It was something that was done in the next generation, the previous generation, that was speaking against them. That had to be dealt with.
Rabbi, one thing that I don't like. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Brother Basil. What I think I was referring to in terms of even with Sarah, I was thinking is there a way that could have been broken? Like in terms of, I know that she oppressed Hagar, and Yah obviously had to deal with it, but was there a way that she could have reconciled or for it to be dealt with, not in the way that it was dealt with? Does that make sense?
Yes, she could have reconciled. They could have. But you see, because of what Abraham was told in that vision, yes, so Hagar can forgive Sarai, but there are consequences for oppression.
The consequences still stood.
It's still regardless.
Regardless. Okay, so the key thing is the fact that oppressing somebody is just not on, basically, because Yah is going to just deal with you regardless of whether the person says you're cool, you're cool. Yeah?
Yes.
And I know you've mentioned this before, but Ishmael is still the Arabs, yeah?
They're believed to be, yes. They say they are, yes. Until we get information that changes that. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, I had a question. I was looking at chapter 16, verse 5.
Okay.
And so Hagar begins to despise Sarah. And I wanted to know, could we look into that and why she began to despise her? And I know that in the word it says, obey those that have ruled over you. So it's kind of like, did Hagar get haughty because she did conceive and Sarah could not conceive? And that's why Sarah oppressed her?
Yes. So when she saw that she was pregnant. So picture this. You see, this is also a test. This was one of the many tests that Abraham and Sarai had to pass. You, Abraham and Sarai, you're going around teaching people about Yahweh, the Most High. You tell people that stop worshiping that God of fertility. No, these gods that you have for everything. But there's one true God. His name is Yahweh that you need to follow. And you're rallying people around you, having a lot of students. Because we are told when the messenger came and told Abraham that Lot has been taken, we said he took his trained man. That word Hinak is somebody who is being trained like an apprentice. So he had people that he was teaching to follow this, if we can say monotheism, as we're calling it these days. And then the deity that you claim is the all-powerful cannot give you a child. All these things you're boasting about, and still you don't have a child. So Hagar gets pregnant and she finds out that, oh, so the problem is not with Abraham. The problem is with you, Sarah. And then she starts looking down on her. Because in those days, if you couldn't give birth, yes, that was frowned upon, because you have to be able to give your husband a son at least. So it could have happened along those lines. But Haggai was making a huge mistake, as we'll see next week. Okay. To have Ishmael, that's easy. But to have an Isaac, Abraham had to be lifted up to the spiritual level to be able to have an Isaac.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
There's a question from YouTube.
Yes.
They would like clarification on the word nation. It was used a lot, but what exactly does it mean? Some say it's a family, some think of it as a country, some think of it as ethnicity. So he could define what the term nation means as used in the scriptures that we studied today.
So when we say goyim, you have a people, and then the people become a family, and then the family becomes is it clan or tribe first? A clan or a tribe, and then it becomes a tribe or a clan, and then you have the nation. So a nation can be said to be an ethnicity of people belonging to one ethnicity. A nation can be a group of people, depending on their numbers, coming from one patriarch. So it depends on how you define it, in the English. But a goyim is a group of people that come from one source, from one patriarch, who would have who would have like a constitution that gives them laws, and they would have either a judge, a shoftim, correctly translated as a leader. So to have the trappings of a nation is to have an army, is to have a leader, is to have laws. But it's a group of people, we would say, that would trace their roots to one ancestor, one patriarch. That's how I would explain that. That is why, if you notice, I will say this: Yah did not send Moshe to go to Egypt to bring out a people to start a religion. That wasn't his original plan. He went to bring a people to start a nation, to start a kingdom, and he was their king. And the first thing he gave them wasn't the land. He gave them a constitution, what we call the Torah. And then he goes and he gives them the land that they're going to keep his laws on. So that's how a nation is formed, from one individual. So you can say ethnicity, but they all have to come from this one person who started it all. Yes, please go ahead.
Let me ask this way. When the king Melchizedek initiated Abraham as a priest, what was his priestly duties? What was his basic priestly duties? Because I'm a little awestruck at the fact that he already was serving a monotheistic God, and like you said, he was already teaching. But I can't quite understand the path that he took in terms of performing priestly duties, kingly duties. Could you elaborate, please?
So the question is,
when Abraham was initiated into the priesthood by Melchizedek.
Okay. You have to look at what the priest. Yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just curious about what was his priestly duties.
So we have to look at what a priest is. A Kohen. A Kohen is not somebody who gives sacrifices and put blood on the. That is what we have come to define the word because of what you read in Leviticus. A Kohen is somebody who brings others to Yah. That is it. Somebody, or yes. That's why he says, "You be to me a kingdom of priests." You are going to take this Torah and then you're going to teach it to the other nations. And what is the goal? So that you bring them to Yah. That is what priests do in its purest form. So it's not about offering sacrifices that is not what priest means in its purest form. So
that's what I thought it was. Adding the sacrifices to atone. That's what I thought that was part of the priestly duty.
Yes. So in the past, the head of the household could do that to bring the sacrifice. The head of the household could do that. So in its purest form, like I am saying, the priest is somebody who brings people to Yah. So all the other rituals that they're told to do is extra based on how Yah wanted to deal with Israel. But the main goal of a priest is to bring people. A Kohen is to bring people to Yah.
Oh, that's good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So when Kepha, who is we call Peter, says that we are a kingdom of priests, then is that what he's referring to? That okay, we are people we Israel, not because he never did say for these Gentiles to be preaching to us, but we are to bring the light, the covenant, what people call the gospel, to them. So is that what he was referring to? A kingdom of kings and priests?
Yes. People who take the message to the rest of the nations so that they would all come and submit to Yah. Moshe tells us that also. So that's where Peter is getting it from.
I have another question, and perhaps if not answer this, then when we get on it, because we're a little ahead, why is it that, and perhaps you have friends in the Christian church that would, probably answer this. Why is Yaakov, Jacob, the bad guy in church? Does it seem like, he's the bad guy and Esau is the good guy and Jacob is the con man and he conned his brother and why is he the bad guy and Esau is the good guy?
Because I think because he stole the blessing that wasn't his.
But that was ordained, though.
Yes, so it takes understanding how blessings are given. Okay. So that text is a little tricky. It's a little tricky based on how you look at it. But for it to make sense, you cannot look at it from Rebecca's point of view, or from Esau's point of view, or from Jacob's point of view. You have to look at it from Isaac's point of view, the father who is pronouncing the blessing. What we call a blessing, a baraha, is like a pool of water that you pull down. There's something that is already there that you're pulling down. When you're blessing, you're not making anything new. When we say, blessed are you, O Yahweh, our Elohim, what are we saying? We are saying, drawn down are you. It's like you're kneeling. You're drawing something from the heavens down. When you're doing a blessing or you're pronouncing a blessing, you're not making anything up. When you close your eyes in deep meditation, you are saying what is being shown to you by Yahweh, and you're pronouncing it on whoever is before you.
Susan, let me just ask this quick one. Do you think that it was set up by the slave master to make sure that Jacob stays as the bad guy, and this is what I'm going to teach the pastors in the theology schools or wherever in that arena, to make sure that those that are in the Christian church keep that mindset that Jacob, who they don't know they are from, is a bad guy. Esau is the good guy. Do you think that's not by chance? You think that is actually purposely done that way?
I don't know. I would answer it by saying it depends on how the person who is teaching the text looks at it. So maybe from their point of view, Jacob is the bad guy. But if you read it from if you put it into the cultural context, it's difficult to say that he stole the blessing. Because if you remember, after he had taken the blessing, and Esau comes, and Isaac shudders and says, who is it that came and took the blessing? He did not take the blessing back. What he did was he rather reinforced what he said. He said, may he also be blessed. So he reinforces the blessing. If it was a blessing given to the wrong person, that's different. That will be his opportunity to take it back because it was done under deception. But Isaac knew that the blessing, whoever it was that he pronounced that blessing on, the person deserved the blessing because he was saying what was being shown to him unto the person. He wasn't making a blessing up. That's how you bless. That's why Jacob said, come, gather my son, so that I'll tell you what's going to happen in the future. He's not predicting. He's telling them what he is seeing, and he's blessing them with it. So it's how the person reads the text and the nuances and the ambiguities and then the vagueness in the text, putting it all together and then coming up with a solution. So I would say maybe it's how loosely the text is read. That's how you get that. Because at the end of after the birthright was sold, we are told that Esau despised the birthright. So it's right. Something that he thought it was a toy, a joke. He despised it. So coming back and crying that he stole my birthright is not an accurate statement because he despised it. But yes.
True.
Brother Basil, it's me again, Cynthia. I just wanted to ask you something. Do you think that's the reason, in terms of the drama that happened with Sarah and Hagar, is that why do you think that Abraham waited until Sarah died before he got some more wives?
Yes, it would. It could be. Yes, it could be. Yes, it could be. I wanted to make a statement, but it's too early to make that statement. But yes, it could be.
Okay. Sorry.
No problem. I was holding back. Yes.
But I don't mind if you don't hold back and you give us a little trailer before we get there.
If I give a trailer, I have to answer a whole lot of questions. I have to build it up to get there. Otherwise,
All right, I'll leave it alone then. Rabbi Akwetey, I have a quick question. Since Esau despised his birthright, I never understood why. I assumed maybe he just didn't want the responsibility of being the firstborn. I really don't know. Do you have any insight as to why he despised his birthright?
Because he was hungry. He sold it for food. What do you call it? It wasn't that he didn't like it, but he did not see the importance of it that day he was hungry.
Oh, I get it. So it wasn't like he despised his birthright. It's just that, look, I'm hungry right now.
Correct.
I don't care. Just give me some food. It was just a selfish decision, not thinking things through.
Correct. Correct.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, he didn't value it. He didn't value it. Because if you listen, he came and said, I'm dying. I teach a session called Dealing with Intellectuals, and how you tell people, okay, read the text and come up with 3 reasons why Esau wasn't dying. He did not use the word for dying that you would use in Hebrew. And when somebody's dying, they don't have the strength to tell they're dying. You die because of food. And then you remember when they gave him the food, the verb la'it. La'it is used in Hebrew is like force feeding a camel. So it's like, shove it in, brother. Kind of. So imagine like a cartoon laying down and the funnel is in his mouth and you're pouring the lentil into his mouth. That kind of imagery is painted in the text. And then right after he eats, he gets up and he walks away. That is not a man that is dying. I mean, you won't even lay down and get some strength. So he didn't value the birthright till he notices that it's very valuable. But he wanted it right there and then. And we do the same, you know. Sometimes we get deals and we don't think it through, and we just go with it. And then you go like, wow, I wouldn't have done that if I had really thought about it. You know, same thing. You know, same thing.
Thank you.
I have a question about that when we come to that part, because there's so unless you want me to ask now, but yeah, I have a question about that little scene right there.
The
soup or gumbo.
The soup and the hold on back, because I know your questions are deep.
Okay. Yeah, I'll hold off.
Yeah, hold off on that. When we get there, we'll deal with it. So now we've removed the complications in the blessings. Now next week we'll look at Genesis 17 and then deal with it like we've done, verse by verse, and then see why are we told Abraham was 99 years? Why do we care? Okay. We'll look at the numbers, we'll write them down, we'll look at the Hebrew equivalent, and you'll be amazed the name that it forms. It's amazing. It's amazing what's going on in the text. And like I said, so now read it again. I made a statement that it was a little problematic for many, I think, that Abraham's name is changed. Sarai's name is not. Read it carefully. Actually, do this. Take Abraham's name change, Sarai's, what we are saying is a name change, which I'm saying is not, and then Jacob's, and compare the 3 and see what was happening there. Okay. So,
are we going to finish 17 next week, or are we going to 18?
Oh, we haven't started 17. There's too much in there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's too much. One thing that when you read in the Bible is that we forget Ishmael was also circumcised.
Right. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that covenant, usually some people say that what proves that you're Hebrew? It says I circumcised. They're doing circumcision in Egypt. That doesn't mean anything. So we'll look at the double emphasis when we do that next week. There's a double emphasis in the circumcision. And we'll see what it means. Why double? Why does it say circumcise, you will circumcise? Why the emphasis? So we'll look at all that. What circumcision means. Why did Moshe say circumcision, circumcise your olah? You know, olah can mean your ears, the foreskin of your ears, the foreskin of your heart. It can mean a lot of things. So there's a whole lot there. And then we'll take 17, and then we'll take Genesis 1 and 2, and then we'll look at something, an echo. And
looking forward to it.
Yes, awesome.
Rabbi, I think you need to put a book out called Genesis, because out of all the seminary books that we buy and commentaries, like the brother said, you break it down to the level of the crumbs. There's nobody can do that like that. That's a special a gift or anointing that you have. So I don't know what school we can attend if you're not around to get us all this information, plus the ability to be able to retain it, not just on MP3 or YouTube, but we need a book. You thinking about it?
True.
Yeah, so we decided not to start with the commentary on Genesis first, because it's a big book. We wanted to start with the small books like Ruth, Esther, and then we will build it, so we can see how we use the small books as trial and error, and then we can polish the edges and see how we can take the big books and what to say, because there's so much to say. I was thinking just last night that when we get to Genesis, so we have the book of Ruth out. We've made some polishing on that. We're going to update. The book of Esther should be out by next week. We're working on the book of 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel now. After those, we are debating whether to do 1st and 2nd Chronicles or actually start with Genesis. We're discussing that yesterday. So it's coming. The difficulty is it's easy to say it on a webinar. It's easy to show it on slides, but to take that thought and put it in a book, sometimes it's difficult. But we're doing it. And this is my goal, that I will share what has been revealed to me, what my teacher has taught me, the tools that I have used, and by the help of Yah, seeing certain things in the text and present it so that when you take it, you see, it's what has been revealed to me, but there's something that has been revealed to you, that when maybe you take what I've written and then you read it, it opens up something that I did not see. Just like Madame Katrina said about Hagar going back. As I go in, she said going back to Egypt. I never saw that. If she hadn't made that statement, I would never have seen that. I've read it over and over again, and I never made that connection. So there's so much more that I don't know, that has not been revealed to me, that maybe Cynthia has. So why I'm saying this is the books that we are writing should not be the end of it. When you take it and you see something and you also want to write a book, go ahead and do that. Okay, because we all build on the revelation of our predecessors. So the books are coming. The book of Samuel, I think we've written the first 10 chapters. We write a chapter a day. That's the goal, so we can have it in 31 days. And then with prayer, we'll see if we can handle Genesis, because it's a big book. And I was thinking maybe just to do one on Abraham's journey. How to do it. It's just, we'll see. But yes, I understand the request, and then we'll try and work on that. We'll try and work on that.
Rabbi Akwetey.
Madam Brenda.
Shalom.
Shalom.
At the end of Muwali's book, The Bible is the Black Man's History, he had indicated about writing a book or the Torah in Paleo Hebrew. That is a concern of mine, because from my study, I'm learning that a lot of translation of the modern Hebrew is incorrect. You yourself even brought one up today, and some things that I have found. And so it leads me to believe that if I, study something, some things they get right, but a lot they get wrong, because they say that there is no vowels, which we know there are vowels if you know the symbols. And so do you think you will be able to have like a special webinar to teach us about the pictograms, the symbols, so that we could perhaps teach it to ourselves? Because I think, to me personally, for myself, I don't know about anybody else, I was telling my husband, if I could learn the meaning behind the symbols, then you could easily pick up Paleo Hebrew and be able to read it for yourself.
Yes, I honestly don't know it that well to be able to present it in a form of a webinar. That's why I have left it alone.
Okay.
You see, I know it, but not in a way to be able to teach it and present it. No, I will fall very short answering your questions on that. See,
okay.
That's why I have left it alone. See, I can work on. I have a friend who knows it, but I don't want him.
Even if somebody got a graph together.
Yeah, I don't want him to hear what I'm going to say. He might scold me. How he communicates is sometimes very offensive. Okay, so to bring him on such a platform for him to present, he doesn't watch his words. He just speaks like he doesn't care, kind of. See, I've asked him, and I've requested that. I've had people actually have private conversations. I'll three-way him, and he would answer questions, and But to bring on such a platform, sometimes I'm concerned because he is something else. But we can work on something. That's the only reason. It's not my comfort zone. That's why I've kept away from it. Yes.
Was he the one that was when you guys were talking with Rabbi Harry, and then he talked about the Paleo Hebrew? Is that who you're talking about? Because I did see that when he was talking about the language and how it's still there.
Yes.
In Africa. Okay.
Yes, I believe so. Yes. Did he call in? He might have. Yes. I mean, he pays close attention to all the Hebrew stuff. It's just that he himself knows that he cannot mind his words. He just speaks.
What about Divine Prospect? Rabbi, he's got lessons on Paleo Hebrew on his YouTube. Have you heard that, or would you endorse that?
Yes, I haven't seen his presentation. I've seen almost most of his presentation. Yes, and his information on point. So I haven't seen the one on Paleo Hebrew. So yes, I respect his scholarship. I do.
Okay. He is very good.
Yes. I respect his scholarship. So.
Thank you for that. I'll look that up because I do listen to Divine Prospect, some of his teachings, and I haven't found that particular one on Paleo Hebrew, so I will look that one up, my sister. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Is this on YouTube?
Yes,
Divine.
YouTube, he goes into the Hebrew language. I think he has Hebrew language 1, 2, 3 on down the line.
Divine Prospect.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Ron Shields. You can go
Kingdom
by
Harvest Ministries, Divine Prospect.
He's deep, Andre.
Okay, so can you write down because me personally, I don't like jumping around here and there. I kind of like prefer, but just in that area alone, I just want to get the information. I'm not one to, be going to various camps or anything. I just that's why I'm just staying put. But regarding the Hebrew thing, I if I can, so if you can just put that, give the title or Marie, is that what you just sent?
That's just one of the lectures. I didn't particularly look for the Kelly speak. But if you send me your email, I'll put my email in the chat bar, and you can just write.
Okay, appreciate it.
Awesome. Yes, he's pretty good. He's not a camp though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's not a camp. He's all round. His scholarship is all round. Very, very well studied, well read.
Rabbi?
Yes, Madam Margaret.
I just need to make a quick comment about Jacob and Esau, about the birthright. I find Jacob pretty tricky too, in terms of, if you have a brother, like you have a sister or brother, just put it in our times, like sister, brother, and they come home and you cook and they say, I want something to eat. And he said, okay, I'm cooking something, you can have some. Why would you say to him, sell me your birthright? Like, sell me everything you're going to own. I find him quite tricky because the brother go, okay, you know what? I know I'm going to die anyway, so yeah, take it. I just want to eat. Like, who says that?
Margaret, can I chip in here for a minute? I think what came to my mind, Margaret, is the fact that you have to remember that this fight started in the womb. They've been fighting like this birthright from the womb. Remember, they were fighting to get people to come out first. So it's almost like, you have to think of it from when they were in the womb, they were fighting all the time. And, Jacob lost out to coming out first, but he never gave up. Sorry.
But I still find that he took a lot from his brother. He took a lot. Like, give me your birthright. Like, give me everything that you own and everything you're going to inherit. Just for a little bowl of stew, because that heightens the animosity towards in between the brothers too. It brings it really high. Like, that's a really high price for a little bowl of stew. I'm just thinking, like we're a family and you come in, doesn't matter if you were fighting, families kind of stick together, fighting or not. They said, okay, well, this is my brother, I'm going to defend him. Families fight. It's a normal thing to fight. But then you don't take everything your brother has from him for a bowl of stew. Even if he said, I don't care, I'm going to drop that anyway, take it. Because he knew the value of that thing he was going to take from the brother. I'm just thinking, I'm just thinking.
Yeah, I think to try and put myself in Jacob's shoes, the only way or the only reason I may ask a sibling for that kind of come before them with that kind of a transaction is if I have observed and I've noticed that this person doesn't value what they have. So since it might go to waste, I might make a bargain with them and say, you know what? You might not want this. You don't value it, but I do. So let's do a trade. But I would really want to pay something more than porridge or lentils. You know, that was a very expensive bowl of beans.
What a treat! What a treat! I will take you down for a bowl of lentils.
Yeah, so since he didn't value it and it was worth lentils, and that's what he bought it for. It was a trade that happened in private, but he did not know that Yahweh had seen the trade. Esau did not know that. He legally sold it.
Shalom, Rabbi.
Shalom.
I just want to touch a little bit on what's being said right now. If in fact Esau hadn't sold the birthright, would he have become the father of the Israelites, or Jacob would still have had that blessing?
Okay, let me take it back. I'll answer a question. So let's take it. I like the question. Let's take it back. If Abraham and Hagar had not Abraham and Sarai had not oppressed Hagar, Isaac might have had those twins, but they would have worked together, because if you notice, one was a farmer, one was a shepherd. One sat in tent, one used his hands. So Esau would have the material wealth. Jacob will have the intellectual wealth, and Isaac, they would work together, as one unit. Regardless, because of the prophecy that was given to Rebekah, even if Isaac, you see, the issue was that when Rebekah sent Jacob to go get the blessing, he did not say, go and say, I'm Esau. That is where he messed it up. No, that was not her intention. Her intention is go and make your case for yourself so that you can also get a blessing. You deserve a blessing based on information that she had. But he goes and says, I need Esau. Did he even say that? We'll say no, he didn't say that. Okay. He didn't really answer the question when they asked him. But, to go say that I'm Esau, that turns everything around. Jacob would have gotten the blessing that was given him, regardless, even if he did not put that expensive price tag on the lentils. It was just jumping the gun, pretty much, because Yahweh had already said that he was going to be the head. But the reason why Isaac says that he deceived me, you don't want the father to say that. That was also what Esau said, deception. That was what went against Jacob, to grab the bull by the horn and face his issues himself, because he was named Heel. His name affected him also, but he was able to come back and face Esau after 22 years.
Are we missing the point, or the point that even at birth, Esau is trying to stomp him to death? So he's catching his heel. So to me, I would have named him Demon Boy or something, because it's like, okay, you came out straight evil, and you were hairy on top of that.
Yeah, so you would probably give that name after the fact, because you give that name as a reader. How I always distinguish the author, the reader, and then the characters in the narrative. You wouldn't name him that as a father who is just watching your sons come out of the womb.
Yeah, you're right. It's a joyful time, and
yes,
yeah, you're right.
Okay, but as the reader, knowing,
I'm corrected.
No, don't be corrected. It's a good point you make, because you're coming from the perspective of the reader. That's how you write commentary. from the reader's perspective, we know the end of the story. So yes, I will name him Devon Boy. No, but Isaac doesn't know the end of the story. He has no clue that his wife has got a prophecy. He has no clue.
That's true. He's just doing what he did. Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
So he's just playing. But because we have, as a reader, we have so much information, we want to read our information into the text. If you do that, you'll miss it. Okay. But when you read it as the characters in the narrative, you see that the text starts opening up.
So they wasn't looking at it. Sorry for all the questions.
No, it's okay.
The parents wasn't looking at it like, oh, it's so look at Esau trying to stomp on Jacob, but they wasn't looking at it as a cute thing, were they?
They were and they were not. So when Esau comes out, everybody is happy, and he's named Esau because he's complete. He's hairy, complete. Okay, he's a doer. He's the one that does. He's a hunter. He can cook. He's a chef. Awesome. Isaac liked.
Oh yeah, that is that. Yeah, a maker, doer. Yeah, that is the okay.
Yeah, so Isaac loved. Yeah, Isaac loved him. But when Jacob came, so they both, mother and father, names him Esau. They're in agreement. But when Jacob is born, read the text. It says, and he called him Jacob. It was only father that named Jacob. Rebecca is silent. Why? She has a prophecy. His name is not Jacob. His name is not Hugh. No.
Oh yeah. Okay. See, tell me, there goes crumbs. There's the crumbs again.
Yes. So she's silent. That is why she's like, no, you're not. You're the one who is holding the leg of the doer. You're not a doer yourself. You can't hunt. You can't go get venison. But that doesn't mean that you don't deserve a blessing. So go and make a case for yourself. And he said, you see, everything that the mother did for Jacob was because of certain concerns that he had. He says, I'm not hairy. So she comes up with a solution. I'll put the coat on you. Maybe I cannot cook venison. I can cook lentils, but not venison. Bring the sheep. I'll do that for you. So Rebecca is coming from a place of a mother who is trying to help a son take certain steps, get courage to go before a father who is dying to get a blessing. That is all Rebecca is doing. Where things go wrong is he says you can do with Jacob, and Jacob stands in front of his father, and the first question is, who are you? And that question echoes through the generations, to all of us. Who are you? You're wearing Esau's clothes. They've cooked food for you to bring. But are you really the doer? Are you Esau? And that's where he started to shake. And he says, I'm Esau. And you can look at Rebecca or picture Rebecca in the kitchen. Why did you say that? That was not the plan. Right. You blew it. So because of that statement, now Jacob he wasn't straightforward. He had to go around.
Sorry, Robert, it's just in my head, I might just go. But I don't understand why he wore the coat. Why did he wear the coat if he didn't want to pretend to be Esau?
No. So the coat was to because he had concerns that he's not hairy. His mother is like, no, that's your concern. I'll put the coat on you so that you be hairy. If that's your concern, see, she's trying to remove all the distractions. Anything that he has as a concern, he wants to remove it so that he can focus on getting the blessing. Okay, so go. Me too. Me too. I can cook. Me too. I deserve the blessing. It's like a mother, helping a son, a child who seems a little timid.
Does that come from reading the text carefully? Because for all these years, I personally always thought that it was more so Rebecca than anybody. Because I thought like she was like, come on, son, you're my favorite. this is what you need to do to go get that blessing from him. And because Esau was Isaac's favorite, I mean, they had their favors. So I thought that it was more that it was her. But then now that you're clarifying this, it makes a whole lot of sense, even though I still am a little, I guess I'm not totally understanding like the sister about the coat, because I'm still like, why would that happen? How is it? Was it that you just read the text very carefully that you were able to come to the conclusion that Rebecca's heart was just for her child with this situation? Because I know I've missed it, and I would love to be able to see that.
Yes, so I talked about this in detail in Canada this year, Black History Month. The point where I think is when you go on a store on my website, you find it. When we read it, we're very excited. Okay, we'll all blame Rebecca, right? Rebecca sent her son. But if you read carefully, when Rebecca was sending Jacob away, he accuses Jacob. He says, because of what you have done. Then wait a minute. What I have done? Mom, you came up with the idea. I was sitting somewhere. You came and told me what you've had. I should do this. I should do this. I was following your dictate. What do you mean what I have done? Rebecca tells him what you did. Why? He did not send him to go deceive father. He sent him to go make a case. I didn't say go say you're Esau. That came because you got scared. So when you made that statement, you're Esau, now you have to wiggle your way around that statement. Now it turns into a deception.
Oh my gosh, that makes so much sense because for most of his life he was always scared and running.
He was scared and running. That is why when he was coming back, Rebecca says, "I'll send to come and get you," and Rebecca never sends, but Yah sends angels in his dream to come home. But before he could meet Esau, they had to change his name from Jacob, one who's not straightforward, to Israel. Israel means straightforwardness with Yah. He had to be straightforward. So the same question is asked. That was asked him 22 years ago by Father. Who are you? The angel he struggled with at night asked him, who are you? He had to deal with that thing again. You messed it up the second time. The first time. The second time he said, I am Jacob. He didn't say
I'm sorry. I've always had a question about that. I'm excited right now because you're just talking about it. So I'm happy because Papa's like, because I know this is my Papa like, okay, Katrina, ask your questions. And I'm like, yes. Okay, cool. So, oh my gosh, so that's what that story meant, because I'm like, it confused me. Everybody has their theologies on that story, but there was nothing that really sat right in my spirit. And I know if it's not sitting right, if it doesn't make spiritual sense for me, I know something's off.
I'll bring you on that, sister.
Yeah, it just, everybody's story made no sense. I'm like, ain't no way you're going to wrestle a malachim or a malach of the Most High, and you're going to be just wrestling him all night. We mere little humans. And then it's like, whoo, I'm tired, little human. What's your name? Like, no, I don't think so. So that always confused me about the point of the story. I've never heard a good answer. But then now that you're saying, is this what you're saying? You're saying that it was, of course, it really happened, but we know that the Most High will do things physically so that you also get the spiritual point. It's like a marker has to be made. Something has to happen to mark the occasion. Our Father is very symbolic that way. So, when he physically wrestled the Malach, it was like, I'm learning who I am. I'm getting strength in who I am in the Most High. I'm waking up to who I am, and I'm not going to let you go. Like he was getting his boldness or something, and learning his position, and that was the point of the whole situation. Is that what you're saying, or am I missing something still?
Yes, no, you're not missing anything. Let me clarify this too. This is somebody who runs away anytime he has to face circumstances. Anytime he has to be straightforward, he runs away. When he was leaving Laban's house, he didn't tell him he was leaving. He just runs away. But you cannot live like that. To be Abraham's seed, you have to be straightforward. So picture this. He comes and he's told that Esau is coming with 400 men. His natural instinct is to run away. But Yah needs that to happen. What would you do to somebody to prevent them from running?
Make them so that they cannot run, break a leg or something.
You injured them. So the whole night he's wrestling with them. You have to do this thing.
Oh, wow.
And then he disables.
So when you get on this story, when we really did it, oh man, you're just kind of giving the highlight.
He injures him.
Right now. Oh my gosh, that's so true.
He disables the flight. He disables his flight. You have to do this. You have to.
I'm just excited. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. You have to face Esau. You have to face Esau. You cannot run. So he goes ahead, and then he baits Esau with the children, and then the mothers. And Esau doesn't take the bait. It's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful story. Esau doesn't take the bait, and because he doesn't take the bait, he becomes a king. He becomes a nation. The text spends one chapter giving us a list of the kings of Edom. And as if to put in our face, it said Esau was a nation that had kings way before we became a nation. Because he did not take Jacob's bait when he sent the children and then their mothers in front of him. They were playing, it was like chess. They were playing chess. They all understood certain principles and they were working against each other. Let's say that, to see who is going to come on top, if you understand the text. See, when you leave the narrative part of the text and then you go to the law part where it gives you the laws, some of the laws come from the narratives, things that our forefathers did. If they were righteous, we're told to repeat them. If they were not righteous, we're told not to repeat them.
Mm-hmm.
Example, the city of refuge. When somebody kills somebody unintentionally and then they run, or you have a mob chasing them and then they run to the city of refuge, you cannot take them. The first person that
I know that.
Yes.
If you have a mob chasing you, they can't take in the city of refuge, only if you come with nobody chasing you.
No, you can run. No, the moment you get to the city of refuge, they cannot kill you for killing someone.
Right. Uh-huh.
But you have to stay there until the high priest or the leader of that generation dies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's the city of refuge. Where do we get that instruction from? We got it from Genesis. You blow your mind if I tell you.
Oh my God, we did?
Yes, it came from the mark that was put on Cain.
You'll find this in Jubilees. If you get the book of Jubilees, it will tell you this is why certain laws are put in place, because this happened way back when.
Yes.
I need the book of Jubilees. Thank you, brother. I need the book of Jubilees. I need the book of Jasher. I need a whole bunch of books. This is
so I missed that, you all. So what was the marker of Cain you said? What came about because of the marker Cain, Rabbi, that you said?
So usually when we read the story of Cain, we think that the mark was put on him to punish him. No, the mark was put on him to protect him from anyone killing him.
Yes, I gathered that from my reading.
Yes, so that was the refuge. He was concerned.
Wait a minute, but Cain killed Abel purposefully. City of refuge is innocent. How does that?
That's not true. He didn't kill him purposely.
Oh, that's because I knew. Oh man, so much is gonna just blow my mind. Okay.
Read the text. Read the text carefully. It wasn't purposefully. No. You read the text carefully.
So he didn't deliberately try to kill him because of jealousy?
No. Nobody had killed anybody before.
Can you please repeat that, Rabbi? I'm so confused. I just heard a nugget there. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, we're all right now.
Okay, now I want you to read the text, not as the reader, but as Cain. Nobody has been killed before. Did he know that when he struck him, he's going to die? What is death?
Wow. Wasn't he warned? He said, sin lies at your door.
That is what Yah is telling him.
But he didn't know that.
He did not know.
Like a sin of omission.
Yes, put yourself in Cain's shoes, not Yeve's shoes. Yeve knows everything. Did Cain know that when I hit my brother with this rock, it's going to kill him? Or it was going to inflict pain on him? No one had died before. Cain's problem, the issue with Cain is when he was asked, where is your brother? His answer was very absurd.
I'm at my brother's feet.
Correct. That's not a good answer. You know where he is. He just did not know that he was going to die. Because no one has died before. That was the first time.
That's not even how they teach it. Oh my God. So yeah, I can't wait till we.
So to protect
so much. Oh my God.
When the punishment came, he was concerned. This is a murderer. And yet he's given a sign to protect him from retaliation. That was the city. The first city of refuge was him. So now
that makes sense because he wouldn't protect him if he did it deliberately. You know, he would judge him.
He was judging.
So that makes a lot of sense.
It makes a whole lot of sense because I never understood it. I'm like, Most High, why would you protect me? It makes like I love my papa, and for my own relationship with him, I know that he's very balanced. But some things from not being taught correctly, I just think for people who don't know how to do so either. But yeah, it would seem as if the Most High was kind of bipolar.
Correct. It's like, what's going on here? You read it and you get so offended.
Oh my gosh, can't you repent? Like, seriously, Papa. Yeah. And then this other person, oh, you know what? I'm just going to let you go. It really seems like he would be a respecter of persons. But now that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So
then this negates the point or the theory that the mark of Cain was turning people dark or black skin.
Correct. Yes. No. The mark of Cain was in the dark skin. That was something that, oh boy, they have used to do a lot of ill and a lot of crazy things.
There's a lot they've done with scriptures to do that.
No. So it was to protect him because he really did not know. He really was not in the know. And Yah said, you see, but the city of refuge is not a place that you want to be because of ignorance. Okay. Because you're going to live with that guilt. That is the most painful. That's the most painful of it, is knowing that I could have answered differently when I was asked, where's your brother? So you are only alive because you have chose that you live through this thing with pain. So the city of refuge is not a place where you go party because it's still on your conscience. When you're dead and gone, it's gone. But you're not dead. You have to deal with it emotionally. I killed that person. I really did.
So Rabbi Akwetey, who did he marry? That's a question that comes up. I'm quite sure you
I touched on it. I touched it.
Who did he marry? Where did those people come from?
If you go back and you listen to the classes from Genesis, we answer all those questions.
Okay, I'm doing that now, so I haven't got to it.
Brother Bashir, I wanted to ask you, when Yah wanted to protect Cain, who is he protecting Cain from? Because Abel didn't have any kids, so who is going to be trying to get Cain back for what he did?
I think I answered that question before, but I'll take a different twist now. You see, when you kill somebody, you become an animal. You're not human. We are above the animals. Okay. And when you kill somebody, you lower yourself to, not even to, the animals are above you. So not only will the other humans that were around maybe render judgment, the animals would have done the same too. Because remember, this is not after the flood where the laws are changed. This is before then. So not only was he afraid of the humans, he was also afraid of the animals, that they might also pass judgment because they make up the whole community.
Right, so, is that why Yah didn't want David to build the temple?
Yes, because it says you have blood on your hands. Yep.
The thing is, Yah was the one that told David to go and kill people. So I don't understand why he told him, do these Philistines, that go and do this, go and do that. And he says, oh, well, you've got blood in your hand.
Yeah, it wasn't that what he did was wrong when he says he got blood because of the wars that he fought. But because of that particular assignment, he cannot build the temple.
Right.
Yes,
Wow.
because of that particular, you cannot.
But he also had Bathsheba's husband's blood on his hands, and that was not a righteous kill.
Yes, that is also that one. The day we look at it, you might stone me. Yes, it's true. It's true. But when Nathan, the tricky part of that story is when Nathan came to accuse David, he accuses him of theft.
Oh, what?
Now, if you read it carefully, he accuses him of theft. And not because
Sorry, can you repeat that? Because I missed it.
I said when Nathan comes to accuse David, the accusation was for thievery, for theft.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, where's my stone? Where is my stone to throw it? Really?
Yes, it was on theft. Yes, Madam Mary.
Okay, so he accuses David of theft, but aren't we to understand that, like during the time before, husbands give their wives a get so that if they die, they can go on. So wives can remarry, right?
Yes. So
I'm thinking that. Okay, go on.
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
So I'm thinking that David probably thought that she already had a get. Maybe he justified it in his mind that she had a get and could possibly die. And probably because he found out that he wasn't dead, he summoned him to kind of try to fix that situation. And then the guy's so loyal to the country that he goes, I've got to just send him off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a tricky situation there.
Yes. Let me answer it this way. Now, you want to look at it coming from the context or the perspective of kings and kingdoms. That's how you can understand this. So let's see. Everybody is the servant of the king, correct?
Correct.
When you stand before any king and you want to mention anybody, everybody is addressed as a servant. So the general sends Uriah, is that his name? I think so.
Yeah.
Back from the battlefield for whatever reason. It's not important now. And he comes before David. And when addressing David, and he wanted to make a statement about his general, that is Uriah's general in the battlefield, he addresses him as my master in front of David the king.
Oh.
What would happen to you for making that statement?
Death.
You lose your head. You don't address anyone as your master in front of the king. I don't even go deep into it. Just this reason, David can have Uriah's head and nobody will protest. If he had done that, awesome. Well, he cannot do that now because the man's wife is pregnant. So nobody would agree that you did that because of the mistake that he made by addressing someone as master in front of you. The appearance of impropriety, is that what they call it? He has every right to kill a man, but there's something wrong if he does, because he has the other benefits. So when Nathan comes, he did not accuse him of killing him. He said, no, it's theft. You had every right to. But the reason why you did it was not because he called you mad, he called someone master. It was because of Bathsheba. Number 2, he's given an instruction to go home and he refuses. Even if you won't go, just go and lay in front of your door. He doesn't do it. Another strike. So legally, from the context of monarchy, those 2 reasons, David can take off his head. Number 3, in those days, David had given a ruling that husbands should give a divorce letter, a conditional get, that's what it's called, a conditional get to their wives before they leave and go to battle. Otherwise, if the man goes and he dies and he doesn't return, you're still married to him. It's called aguna, you're anchored. You don't have a divorce paper, so you cannot move on. So you're anchored. So to prevent that, David's time came up with this instruction that you get a conditional get to your wife before you leave to battle. If you don't come back, she's divorced. Which is good, but there's a loophole. Huge loophole, meaning that the moment he leaves for battle means that the wife is divorced. She has a get. So that story has a lot of technicalities. You can argue because the reason that why you have to look for a solution was because of the accusation by Nathan. When Yah came to accuse, the accusations did not make sense. We all look, you killed the person. No, he said theft. What do you mean? Because he knew. David was a giant in Torah. He knew the book. but he used a loophole in a law that was created that did not originate from the Torah. It was a law that was created because of the situation at that time or the circumstances, and then he manipulated a loophole, and then that happened. It gets a little technical with that story. But yes, what he did with Bathsheba, wrong. Killing Uriah, wrong. But
I get so it's like if he would have done it, kind of like the difference between murder and if you have killed someone due to protection, like somebody's about to kill you, so you have the right to defend yourself, even if it came to that, and difference between that and murder. So,
yes.
So the difference between, am I wrong?
Correct. Yes. So you're protecting
Okay.
yourself.
So yeah, and if they die or you have to kill them to protect yourself or your family or whatever, it is what it is, but it wasn't due to revenge or anything like that.
Correct.
So in this case, if he would have killed Uriah when he did those two things, when he basically disobeyed the ways of Yisrael, basically, and what you're supposed to do addressing a king, then he would have been justified. But because his heart was deceitful,
yes,
he kills him for a deceitful reason. So correct. Therefore, that's why Uriah's blood was declared innocent.
Correct.
Okay.
And you see, one difficulty people don't look at. If you create adultery with a woman, you cannot marry that woman. If you're caught in adultery with a woman, you cannot turn around and marry that same woman. David did.
Mm-hmm.
But brother Basil, the thing is, fair point what you just said, but Yarden picks the child from David and this woman to be king. It just goes against that.
Yes.
It's like yo, like out of all his kids, you know, he had wives, concubines. I mean, this is what happened to Abigail's kids. You know, Abigail was a really smart chick, you know, on the board.
She was. I like her.
Yeah. But David paid for it.
Yeah. I want to know about her kids. I didn't know about their kids. How old is it? That's the one he did. For the holy pajama. I mean, seriously, I just don't understand. So
Solomon's thinking was exactly, yes, Israel got rich. Israel had the temple. He built the temple, but by the end of his life, he was putting idols in those temples for all those concubines and wives he was wrapping up. And after that, I don't see where the house of David ever recovered from the adultery, because you had Absalom coming after his dad.
Yep.
You had the Amnon and Tamar tragedy.
Yep.
And if you look at the story, David deserved it.
Yeah.
How can you have your son do that to his sister and you don't take his head off? You're the king.
Yes.
So Absalom had every right to come after Amnon.
No, but you know what, Terry? Because the fact is, David knew what was happening. Because remember, he knew that you already told him, you did these things in secret. I will do you in public. So he kind of felt guilty that this was happening because of the things that he did. So he almost like, you know, when you've done something wrong and you feel disempowered to deal with things that you're supposed to deal with, because he felt guilty about that situation. I don't know if his kids, his family would have been a joke business as it was if he didn't do what he did, because that was on the punishment. He couldn't really punish the kids because he kind of knew that it was not necessarily coming from them. You know what I mean? And I think that's what was going on there. But my thing is that I just got to go back to Yah and be like, for real, Yah, like, out of all the kids, Solomon is the man that you choose, the one that comes out of a whole history. You know what I mean? It's almost like Solomon must have been tested, because how is he even going to get any respect? Because people will be like, dude, you know how your mom and dad came together? Like, seriously, what are you talking to me about? No, don't talk to me. You know how you guys got together. You know, it's just a nicer story talking about Abigail and David. That's a nice story. I mean, you know, your love conquers all that stuff. But Solomon's story just don't sound too nice to me. You know what I mean? Man's on the phone tell you, oh, you must not do this, you must not do what do. You need to chat to your man because things weren't right there. And there's an insult to injury. His mom doesn't seem to get it. You know, she got bamboozled by one of his brothers to go and ask Solomon, go and ask him for me to have one of daddy's concubines. I mean, like, she just didn't seem to get it, this woman. Just didn't seem to get it. But anyway, that's just my view. I'll let it go.
You know,
but did the other children have the leadership skills that Solomon shows? He did some things that he should not have done. But one thing that he did do that many kings would not have done is that he asked for wisdom to lead his people. So he somewhere in the middle to the later end, he ended up going astray. But he didn't start off. He didn't start off that way.
Yes.
Sorry. No, but when you look at the kings in general, they just picks the person that he feels is the best. It's the same with David. He's the youngest of his whole family. He's not the oldest or the second oldest or anything. Like, Yahweh's chosen the person based on their heart. And often, as we go through our history, we see that. It's the same thing with Jacob being chosen over Esau. And I don't know, just other times, it's often not the oldest person or the person that you would think that's going to get the role of leadership. Or, for example, with Jacob's children, then Judah gets the blessing for the kingship because he's the one who shows the leadership. So Yahweh chooses the person that he knows is going to lead the nation for the best, usually. And it kind of goes that way all through Kings and Chronicles as well. You see the same thing being repeated.
Do you imagine how his brothers felt?
Exactly. You know what I mean?
But Rabbi, I know that Cynthia she is passionate about it.
She's very yes, she is.
But my question is, David paid for that sin by the death of the child that was brought about by the discretion.
Yes.
So I think that atonement, so to speak, kind of absolved him, so Yahweh could go on and give the kingship to Solomon, the next child. Am I off?
No, you're not off. You see, looking at it as the reader, the reason why he could marry Bathsheba is because, you won't see this in the text, let me say that, because it looked like Uriah would have died in the battle anyways. If he had not jumped the gun. When he was up there on the roof and she was battling at the bottom, it wasn't just something that just happened. No, everything was calculated. The reason it happened too, you should read, should I say this? Or you should,
please do.
I'll say, you should buy my book on Second Samuel.
Oh, is it out already?
Nah, I'm still writing it. So David tells us when he comments on this situation, this episode, he tells us, he writes in the Psalms, when I say anything foolish, don't listen to me again. He had said something to Yah, and Yah had told him that he's going to test him. And he told him what the test was, and he still failed. So it was a test that he brought upon himself because of a question that he had posed. I'm not telling you the question because I'm going to write in the book. Because of a question that he had posed. And when the test came, he failed miserably. So he writes in the Psalms that when I say something foolish, don't listen to me, in his prayer to Yah about this situation here. He paid for it. And it all goes back to what we just talked about this afternoon or this morning. Whatever happens in your tent is not private. It's going to unfold, especially if you're Israel, especially if you're put in such a position. He thought it was private. No, it's not private at all. It's going to come out. And also with our kings. Kings are not chosen because they are righteous. If you read 1 Samuel, the reason why they wanted a king, it will shock you. That is why, and so in the past, the judges were leading, and then Samuel comes in and they want a king, and then they change to the monarchy. But the moment the monarchy came, we have the office of the prophet, because Yah needs somebody righteous. He cannot depend on the kings. The kings are not chosen because they are righteous. They're chosen because they come from a certain bloodline. That is why we say that Israel is led by the prophets. We call them Wulamo, not the kings. The kings are not there to be righteous. If you have a righteous king, awesome, awesome. But that was not why Israel wanted a king in the first place. So,
Shalom. Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat shalom, Mr. David. I'll take two more questions. My question
goes, I'm still struggling to understand that David, Bathsheba, Nathan, and Uriah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, just a little technical one. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm still struggling because I'm seeing that as murder, adultery, or adultery then murder. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, maybe you could explain 2 Samuel 12:8-9. You could highlight that a little bit better for me to see why it's not murder and adultery that he committed, that he was guilty of.
So,
you understand yes. The question?
So simply with adultery one, we know that the Torah tells us if you commit adultery with a woman, you cannot turn around and marry that woman.
Yeah, you both will be dead.
Correct. But David marries Bathsheba, and then they have a king, they have a child that is Shlomo, and out of Shlomo comes Mashiach.
Right.
Okay, so the only reason David can turn around and marry is not by breaking Torah. We will not let him break Torah. That means that we're missing details of what happened. So just that alone throws our theory of adultery out of the picture, because Yah doesn't have favorites. He doesn't say, because you're David, I'm going to pardon you.
I'm not going to punish you for it. Right.
So
how would we look at 2 Samuel 12:8-9 then? Like, what was Nathan? Like, how would we put that in the context or in the right perspective then?
So Nathan came and accused him of theft. So it wasn't adultery. He stole something that belonged to somebody. And he said, if you had asked, I would have given it to you. That's why I say, in hindsight, that it was destined that Bathsheba would be his wife, because that is where Solomon is going to come from.
Right.
Okay. But he jumped the gun just like Abraham, because he does not understand divine communication. He jumps the gun and does all things. He goes and inquires, is this Bathsheba, the daughter of, when you read the text, he was very technical with it. He didn't just take her and do whatever. No. Okay, Bathsheba would have told him, I'm married. The Hebrew kings did not have that kind of authority to just do whatever they want. No.
Okay.
You see, by her going with it means that she also knew something. Okay. And him coming back to marry her, that's a no-no in Torah law, but he gets away with it. Well, he doesn't get away with it because of the technicalities. And in that story, it's amazing that after that story, he says if Yah wanted animal sacrifices, he would have given him. But Yah said he did not want any of that. He wants his heart to repent. That is where he should have brought, excuse me to say, a horse. Because this was huge. But Yah says, yeah, I told him I didn't want that. I just want your heart to repent. And David knew it. When Nathan came and he said it and said it was you, he knew it and he said, I have sinned.
Can I ask another question real quick?
Yes, please.
It's on the same topic. When we get down to verse 13 in chapter 12, right? It says, and David said to Nathan, I have sinned against Yahweh. And Nathan said to David, Yahweh also hath put away your sin. You shall not die.
Yes.
So from what I'm gathering there, whatever the sin David is guilty of had a death penalty attached to it. But the fact that Yahweh put away the sin, now that death penalty is not there.
Yes.
So, oh my God, I'm trying to put this together in my head. So it makes sense. I'm sorry.
So he's not forgiving him because with adultery, you get that punishment. He's not forgiving him. How should I put it?
So what's the sin right here that he's forgiven him for that he's no longer going to kill him for?
For the sin that Nathan mentioned, theft, stealing. He stole and then he killed somebody. So he has to die. He had every right to kill the person, but the reason he killed the person wasn't the reason why he was supposed to kill him. So since he shed blood, his blood should be shed.
Right.
No, but Yah said, I've forgiven you with that. I've forgiven you with that. But there's still consequences, though.
Right. Okay.
Yes, forgiveness doesn't mean there are no consequences when it comes to certain things.
No, I completely understand. But I was trying to sort out what sin carries the death penalty that David just avoided pretty much.
Avoided, correct, yes.
Yeah.
And you see, when you're a king, when you're a leader, there are some things that the populace will do that you cannot do. You know, when you go steal, it looks so big, so huge that sometimes you have to lose your leadership.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Oh man, no, I gotta get back to my book, man.
Yeah.
I have a feeling like I've never read this book before, and I've been studying it since I was like 16, 17 years old, and I'm 32 now. Yeah. Or 36 now.
36. Yeah, look. So use the steady method that we always use. It takes reading the text over and over again. That's why sometimes people don't want to do it. But you want to put yourself in everybody's shoes in the narrative. The author who is writing what he's telling you, David, who is committing whatever he's doing, Uriah, Bathsheba, and then as the reader also, because the reader has so much information already. So what we do is we read our information because we know how it ends into the text. When you do that, you won't see anything. No.
I think that's what I was guilty of. So now I have to reframe myself whenever I'm reading to not just read to get to the end.
Correct.
See the story from everyone's perspective.
From everyone's correct. And then when you do that, you see that, okay, Joseph did not know that they had killed a goat and put the blood on the blanket, so on his coat. Because it doesn't make sense when you're a general, you're a governor of Egypt, and then you don't go back home to go look for this thing. No.
Yeah, you knew where you came from, so why are you not going back to go get your father to go talk to him? Why they have to come to you?
Correct. Because he did not know that they had deceived father, and father might have given up on him.
Right.
You see. Wow. So now when you look at it and he's 17 years old, when you look at it from his perspective, he has every right not to go home. Maybe they don't want him. And he comes from a family that almost every generation, one person is kicked out. Ishmael, Esau, Joseph. I'm the one this time.
I mean, also the name he gave his kids. Also
his kids, correct?
Well. So
yes.
Like speaks to his mental state.
His mental state. Yes, they never came. They never sent a recovery team to come look for me. Maybe Father is in on this too.
Now, I appreciate your time, Rabbi, most definitely. But I still got to study that David.
Yeah, don't worry. I think I put more information on it in the book to clarify. Yeah? I left a lot of it out because I have to go over and over and over. But,
is the paperback coming out with the electronic at the same time, or?
Yes. So with the book of Esther, yes, both is coming out at the same time, and then First Samuel and Second Samuel. First Samuel will come out first. And then, so they're all going to this time come up with the paperback and then the e-copy at the same time.
Nice, beautiful. I really enjoyed the book of Ruth, so I have the paperback version, but definitely.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks again, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom.
You're welcome. Shabbat Shalom. Oh, I hated to leave. Every time I'm leaving, I'm like, I wish I could stay so we just steady, but everything has a point where it ends. But we do this every Shabbat. So if you want to join us, please do. You can go on our website, kingdomofkings.org. We're having some promotions. So if you want to study with us, if this is for you, join us. My family on YouTube. Torah scholars. So as usual, I will put the class up. I will send you an email when it's ready. So I'll put a webinar and then I'll put this one up also. And then Taste of Text, we'll get some new materials this week. I finished recording, just edited. And Madam Grant is going to talk about the mezuzah on your doorpost next week. You don't want to miss that. It's what we do inside our houses, our tents. We see how it affects generations. So what did Yah do to help us not to forget this? We'll talk about that next week. But thank you so much for taking time to come and study with us. May Yah bless you. May he keep you. May he shine his face upon you. And may he give you all shalom. Enjoy the rest of your week. We would meet next Shabbat.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Welcome. Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
בכל יום שיבוא ואף על פי שיתממע עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא אני מאמין אמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח אני מאמין ואף על פי שיתממע עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא ואף על פי שיתממע עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא בכל יום